If the average American knew that almost half of the deaths in America occurred in a nursing home where less than 1% of Americans live, we would have never, ever gone along with this level of subjugation.
Just how did the data and science surrounding COVID-19, also known as CCP virus, become so politicized?
Unless you speak to one particular narrative, you're some podunk JUCO.
Today I sit down with Steve Deace, co-author of Faucian Bargain, which makes the case that the coronavirus pandemic put unprecedented power in the hands of an unelected bureaucrat, which is symptomatic of broader problems facing the U.S. Republic.
They're going to use this playbook on virtually everything now because we showed that there was a willingness to be subjugated.
This is American Thought Leaders, and I'm Yanya Kellick. Steve Deace, such a pleasure to have you on American Thought Leaders.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So, just moments ago, I actually finished reading Faucian Bargain. Excellent read, by the way. I have to say I laughed out loud multiple times along the way. You have a lot of great ways to kind of keep things light, even though the topic matter is frankly deadly serious, and I mean that literally. Tell me about the motivation of writing the book.
We wanted to write a book that empowered the average American to get back control of their lives. There's been a couple of things that are the most concerning. We have essentially violated the two core tenets of our entire healthcare system here in the United States. Informed consent, number one, and then the ability to get a second opinion, number two. Let's start with informed consent. The idea that, sure, your pulmonologist knows more about lungs than you do, but if he tells you you've got stage 4 lung cancer and it's terminal, or stage 2 lung cancer and it requires an aggressive form of chemotherapy, you are permitted to go get a second opinion. He can't order you right away to engage in this treatment, even if he deems it to be really of an emergency status. You are still permitted to get a second opinion. You're still permitted to consent to be informed of what the risks of the treatment are. Is the cure worse than the disease, et cetera? We've abandoned both of those hallmarks in the last year with COVID. The American people, much of the data they're going to get in this book will be data they've never heard before, seen before, has not been communicated to them by our leading infectious disease expert, Anthony Fauci. For example, if the average American knew that almost half of the deaths in America with COVID occurred in a nursing home where less than 1% of Americans live, we would have never, ever gone along with this level of subjugation. These are the sorts of data points that have been kept from the American people. So they have not been given the right to informed consent. And then where's the opportunity for a second opinion? When we first started questioning things, when I studied the Imperial College model last March and the IHME models, and then comparing what they were projecting with the actual data and pointing out how wrong they were, I really thought that this might be sort of like another version of the global warming debate, where the same people are on both sides of that issue with a lot of the same missiles aimed at each other. What really surprised me from the very beginning, the day after the Imperial College model came out, Sunetra Gupta she's Oxford's one of Oxford's leading epidemiologists. She was in the pages of the left-leaning Economist talking about it's a garbage model. It's not any good. Why are we doing this? Stanford's one of the top 5 medical schools in the United States. Numerous experts, even before people knew who Scott Atlas was, were coming forward from Stanford to question this. Oxford University is the #1 rated university in the world, according to U.S. News and World Report. Its Center for Evidence-Based Medicine has been skeptical of this all along. Martin Kulldorff at Harvard, who helped design the VAERS site for CDC, has been skeptical of this approach. Tony Katz, Harvey Risch at Yale University. These are not right-wing think tanks. Okay, I mean, these are places of elite academic excellence in America, and they have been pushing back on this narrative all along. And yet somehow, because they didn't line up with one narrative, these experts, we were told to trust the experts, these experts got kicked to the curb. And then the final example of this is the nation that gave us Greta Thunberg in 2018 and 2019, Sweden, has been the one nation control group in the West against all of this in 2020 and 2021. So why weren't we permitted to get second opinions from counter experts before we decided to risk A huge drop in cancer screenings, 40 million unemployed, 20% of American small businesses that are never going to return on average across the country. The fact that we're sitting here now on a mental health cliff, how come we weren't ever given what the alternatives to this could be so that we could get a second opinion? The two main objectives of our healthcare system, informed consent and second opinions, were denied us at COVID.
Well, yeah, absolutely. There certainly wasn't any sort of public forum of debate that was ever happened or was allowed to happen, frankly, and that's very interesting. So one thing that really jumps to mind is something that comes up repeatedly in the book, and you actually have a whistleblower that you call Veritas in there that talks about this as well, is this idea that there was a very short time period very early on where Dr. Fauci initially, in a very prestigious journal, the New England Journal of Medicine, I believe, right, published that he believed that this was nothing worse than a bad flu, or that's a rough paraphrase.
A pandemic level of flu, yes.
A pandemic level of flu, exactly. And that's where that kind of phraseology originally comes from. You know, and 10 days later, in this Veritas, the whistleblower from the White House that you're keeping kind of, a deep secret, is saying that no new data apparently appeared. However, the messaging turned dramatically, and suddenly it was 10 times worse, right? And so what happened there? And tell me about this.
Anthony Fauci's not stupid. He's actually really good at his job. And so when we see things here in the United States, like what we saw just this past weekend. So on last Sunday, he went on NBC's Meet the Press, and he said that vaccinated people still have to wear masks and still have to be lepers and COVID stand because they still might get the virus and spread it to others. In other words, he basically said he's not sure the vaccines work. Later that exact same day, he went on CNN Live and said to that audience that these Republicans, and of course, all public health experts single out partisans, right? I mean, that's just how what a great bedside manner. But he said these Republicans want to be eased off of restrictions, but yet they don't want to take the vaccine that would get them off the restrictions. It seems like paradoxical thinking. So he told one audience that the vaccines will do nothing to get their lives back, even if they take it. He then told another audience that they can't get their lives back unless they take the vaccine. So, I mean, which is it?
So you've just watched a clip from an American thought leader's interview, and as you probably know, I pour my heart and soul into these. YouTube has been censoring some entirely mainstream videos lately, including things like Florida Governor DeSantis's coronavirus roundtable. We've even had some of our own videos removed from YouTube for no clear reason whatsoever. And frankly, I don't find this to be appropriate. I don't find this to be acceptable. I don't want to be sitting around thinking what YouTube may or may not feel like they want to censor. And beyond that even, YouTube has demonetized us for the past 2 months. Ostensibly, we're working to resolve the issue, but our hopes are kind of fading when it comes to this. So what is our response to this? Well, we've started our own platform, Epoch TV. Now, Epoch TV is the premium Epoch Times video platform. It's got American thought leaders, but it also has The Larry Elder Show and Crossroads with Joshua Phillip and a number of other programs. So you can get Epoch TV for this low introductory rate of $4.99 a month. And in so doing, you're actually supporting the Epoch Times as an organization. You're supporting uncensored news. You're supporting groundbreaking investigative reporting. And you're supporting these deep dive interviews that I love doing so much. Yeah, please join us.